yeah. We go. Ladies and gentlemen, across Africa and beyond, this one is for the visionaries, the builders, the change makers. Welcome to the funding formula.
From Lagos to Nairobi, Accra to Kigali, we together to unlock destiny. No more guessing, we got the key. The further fund, they show the strategy. Grants, donations, corporate giving, everything we need, we go start with it. Proposal game, now we did deliver, because we understand the funding formula. The funding formula. Turn your vision to reality. The funding formula. Clarity, confidence, and strategy. The funding formula. For African hopes, we get paved the way. The funding formula. Let the whole world hear us say.
My name is Victor John, and I will be your moderator for today. Yes, I'm Victor John. I'm going to be your moderator for today. This promises to be a very, very engaging session. It promises to be very, very enlightening. So I want you to sit back. I want you to enjoy. I want you to come ready to learn, come ready to ask questions. It's going to be very, very engaging. The Further Firm is the organization putting this together. And let me just share some more light about the Further Firm, because I know that you would have seen the Further Firm quite a number of times, maybe when you were filling the forms, in the emails that we've been sending across to you. The Further Firm is a business consulting organization. Is a consulting organization, and what we do basically is we are a resource mobilization organization, and what we do in a nutshell is to try to help organizations, social impact driven organizations, access funding. That is what we do at the Further Firm. We are a resource mobilization organization. And like I've said before, we help organizations access funding. Now there are quite a number of ways that we do that. One of the ways is through trainings, like something like what we have now. We organize trainings, we organize learning sessions where organizations and individuals who are in the social impact space, they learn how to access funding. They learn the nitty-gritties around how to access funding. And the other way we do it is to partner with other agencies, donor agencies, funders. Those are the ways we help organizations access funding, and I mean quite a number of other things that we do. But basically, we are a resource mobilization organization that helps social impact organizations or individuals access funding. I'm going to go on to play a very short, just about a 1-minute video that introduces the guest speaker. And after that video, the next voice you would hear, the next face you would see would be the guest speaker's face. It would be the guest speaker's face.
Daniel is a seasoned governance and trade policy advisor with over 2 decades of experience across Southern and Western Africa. He formerly served as Regional Director, Southern Africa and Malawi, at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, where he advised heads of state, development institutions, and private sector leaders. His expertise in narrative-led policy design and multi-stakeholder engagement positions elevate Africa as a leading influence partner for Africa's next development chapter. Daniel has led national and sectoral transformation programs, working closely with top leadership in both public and private sectors. At the Tony Blair Institute, he established impactful partnerships and delivery systems in Malawi and across Southern Africa, advancing initiatives in agriculture, digital transformation, energy access, and private sector growth. Please welcome Daniel to the first session of the Funding Formula 1.0 as he delivers his session.
Good. Let me borrow from Victor. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining from. Okay, I think I'll just go straight into my slide. My slide says it all. Fantastic. Okay. So today I mean, thank you, Victor. Thank you, team. It's an amazing, and I consider it a privilege to be kicking this thing off. Everything big starts small, and the Further firm is definitely planning to go further. So as you go further, at least I'm glad that I got to have the first session. We're looking at beyond grant and how to build trust before transactions. And I'm going to be speaking, pretty much from my heart, to be honest. I mean, I haven't been in this space quite a while. There are multiple ways that people view this, but I think long term, I'm thinking sustainability. I'm thinking how do we get sustainable funds to do the kind of impact work that we are all interested in. And just to put it in context, for us in Elevate Africa, what I've come to see is, and my conclusion is that you can't elevate Africa without African money. We have to find a way to mobilize funds within the continent. I mean, we've been thankful for Friends of Africa, or others who have demonstrated interest in supporting and helping Africa. But we, as Africans, will have to find ways to use our own funds and build the networks across our various countries in order to get those funds through. My slide has gone off. Okay, so one of the things I would say is that you don't fund what you don't trust, and you don't trust what you don't know. So it's important that we get to know each other first, and in the course of knowing each other, build trust, and then we can talk about funding. Somebody once said that you win a man's heart, then you win what he has in his hand. So there are two paradigms I would like to speak here. The old paradigm really much is about, usually there's a request for grant application, you then apply, you probably meet certain criteria of boxes, and once you check those boxes, they look at your capability, history and all of that. You get the grant, then you are thankful, then the announcement, and then after a while, maybe silence on both sides or on one side. And so the recipient tends to see the donor from a distant transactional lens. So while this is something that you see, but from a recipient perspective, is not a sustainable approach to being funded. I think, in my view, I would propose a new paradigm, or the paradigm that I think works just by observation, is that the relationship comes first. So you relate with potential. Many times, sometimes you know who they are, sometimes you don't know them before the fact, and then you align, and then you build, you work together along a defined future, a defined path, and then go beyond just the donor as a funder, but one who is a fellow traveler in your vision, right? So talk about vision, a great part of it is about vision alignment, right? So what does it mean to build beyond? And we're speaking beyond fund. In this space, there are two kinds of people in this space. There are missionaries, and then there are mercenaries. And I like to say that the missionaries tend to be mission-driven, impact-driven, and then the mercenaries are all about the money. How much do you have? What can they get? And all of that. And unfortunately, I would say that you would have typically thought that the people with that mercenary mindset, transactional orientation, will tend to operate more in the private sector. But there is a business within the context of development. And so not everybody is mission driven. Some people are purely transactional. So you have those two parts of it. So building beyond the grant means aligning with partners who share with our core tenets. And I've broken them down into three things. And this is what I'm pushing for, to say beyond the transaction, that it's important to establish relationship and know that we are working for people, we are working with people, and we are accountable to people, and that people matter. At the heart of everything we are doing is it's individuals. I remember a conversation I had with one of my mentors who has been one of the strongest networks globally. I mean, I asked him, I said, how have you related with people who have gone ahead of you, older, really older guys, and then your contemporaries, you're respected amongst them, and then those who are yet to come, the younger generation. And he said to me, three things he said to me, and very profound. The first thing he said was, if you have to wait for people to become or emerge or to have or be, you are too late. The best time to know people is when they're budding, because everything big starts small. And so you would tend to trivialize or take people for granted or overlook them. And if you go for conferences, you know that people are always measuring up and checking people out and saying who has, who hasn't, and then trying to, but just being able to connect with people, whether they are or are not, because you never really know sometimes, right? So the first thing he said to me was that if you are looking for people to be, have, and all of that, it's too late. Relate with people long before they be and they become. And in my experience, a lot of the people who relationships that I've had are people who I knew long before they emerged. And so by the time you're relating with them, you've built a relationship that is beyond what is in their pockets, right? So so the first thing he said to me was that it's good to know people before they emerge. That's and all of that. Secondly, he said, relate with people on the basis of their humanity, not who they are or what they have. Just connect with people. And I'll speak to that more as we go along. The third thing he said to me was, once you have access, never abuse it. So the three things I've seen here is, in terms of relating with partners, is one, that the foundational belief and principles are in harmony, fostering a true partnership. Basically, you are saying shared values. You want to ensure that you are working with people who have shared values, because the level of authenticity and connectedness that you would tend to have will always be on the basis, first of all, on shared values. The next thing is that there's clear common vision. Are we going in the same direction? Do they align with your vision or where you are going or what you hope to achieve or what you want to achieve? So you want to find entities that are aligned with your vision. And so the level of authenticity and reality will tend to align once you have that very clearly spelled and clearly defined. So we see the same future, working towards a collective impact that transcends individual goals. And so because it is a joint thing, the talk about selfishness will not arise, because you're going, there's collective impact, collective outcome, collective vision. The next is mutual value. And so within this community, you are thinking it's not a zero sum, it's a win-win. How do I help you make progress with your aspirations, with your vision? How do I make you a better person? And so because you are thinking that way, and that person is also thinking that way, that there's an exchange of value. And make no mistake, there is indeed a transactional element, but which one leads? Should transaction lead a relationship, or should relationship lead a transaction? Both coexist, to be honest. But in terms of the one that is more lasting and more sustainable is when the relationship leads the transaction. So you say, well, in the end, there will be exchange of value. But first of all, let us say, okay, we share vision, we share values, and now we want to exchange value on the basis of those two things already established, right? So what does it mean, again, to build beyond? So we'll say building beyond is to build is not just after, is above. It means you are seeing everything. I said earlier on that it's important that you see the people beyond what they have. And what happens when you meet with people is that many times they can sense when you don't really care, when you don't care about who they are, what they're about, or you don't care about the mission. It comes across. So if it's just about the deal, it's very obvious. And so it's important that you are able to see. A word is a Zulu word that has I mean, I've been meditating on for a while, is the word sawubona. Sawubona means is a greeting that those of the Zulu tribe will greet when they will say, "I see you." And it's so powerful because many times in the business of things, you don't see people. And in having conversations and the desire to connect, you want to see people really. Recognition of the person, not just their resources, right? Building genuine connection through shared values and vision. So it's important that you see people, because when you see, you would tend to relate and connect, and connect strongly. The next is I relate as a person, not as a pocket. People do not like people who relate to them on the basis of their pockets, but you want to relate on the basis of their person. So you see and then you connect, because the truth is people connect. So what we are saying and laying the foundation for the entire funding formula is that at the heart of everything is people. Beyond the funds, beyond the mission, beyond all of this, is that the human person is at the center of everything. And your ability to see them and to connect with those people will distinguish you every time you go into a conversation around funding. So approaching relationships with authenticity and humanity, seeking to understand passions and purpose beyond financial capacity. So that is what connects, because then you can be real. You can be real, that because you really care, that connection takes place. Because it is not funders that get people out of trouble or invest, it is friends. It's genuine relationships. And if you don't see people, then you don't connect with people, then it's hard to get the real extras. So next, I don't pitch until I understand your purpose. Understanding comes first. And if there's no curiosity, taking time to discover alignment, creating opportunities that serve mutual goals rather than the one-sided transactions. Because a transactional mindset is a very selfish, I, me, my type of orientation. When people come to the table, really, at least at ab initio, it is about themselves. But the one who wins, the ones who really cares about the other person and is able to get beyond himself and get to the other person. So this just laying the foundation for all of this, right? So the power of relational capital. First is financial capital, what they give, monetary support that fuels our initiatives. Social capital, who they connect you to, introductions that expand your reach and influence. And let me say this, that the biggest doors that have opened for us have always been referral. Somebody saying, no, I know these guys, I like them, I see what they're doing, I see, because when people speak for you, it's so powerful. And social capital is key. But in order to build your social capital, you must be able to build your relational capital. Why they keep coming back? Trust and connection. That is the most sustainable part of any fellowship, of any partnership, right? We're building relationships that begin first with conversations. So what are you talking about? In what areas do you align? Then you want to test out the relationship to say, okay, can we test out something, do something, just to build track record and initial credibility to say that we can work together, we can collaborate, there's some element of alignment between us. And then you can now say, okay, at this point, you have to co-own the mission. We go on this together. And so there is no suspicion. We let our guards down. We know that this partner we trust. And on that basis, everyone has, its own stuff out there to work. So in my experience, the longest standing partners started not with proposals, but with shared meals and genuine curiosity about each other's work. There are a number of relationships that I currently have. There are no conversations right now about money. These funders really, and they really have some deep pockets. But what is happening is I trying to understand them, them trying to understand us. And the beautiful thing is when they see opportunities or they see things that they think would be interesting, they send those things to me and I send the same back to them. But you see, a relationship is being nurtured. And at some point, there will be a full alignment and then you will see these things happen, right? So the invisible contract, trust. before transaction. So how do you unlock the first grant? Is rarely the application. It is the energy of trust. Trust is the first thing. And trust has two elements. Trust is, I trust your intention and I trust your capacity. And so you want to use time to build the track record. And that track record is always relative to individuals who can affirm or that you have the wherewithal to do it, and that you are real and genuine and the work you are doing is meaningful and impactful. Because people are the ones that will speak for you. And they won't just speak out of the blues. They will speak because there is a connection. And where does that start from? It starts from clarity. What are you truly about? And that definition is important. In order for us to deal one with another, it's important for us to have clarity. And that speaks to definition. I remember a friend of mine, defined definition. He defined definition as the handle with which you lay hold of ideas and concepts in order for you to master and use them. And when you think about how we relate, people are trying to find out how they can leverage what you have or who you are, or how they can support you. Now, when it is not clear who you are and what you're about, it is hard for people to find that area of alignment. Maybe you're doing one thing, then you're shifting to something else, and then you're shifting to something else. They don't have enough time to accommodate and say, okay, this is where we align, and this is what we can do with one another. So it's important that you evolve some level of clarity. And so definitions at that point are extremely important, because when you go into that relationship and that engagement, definition is key. Articulating your purpose with conviction and transparency. The next is that once you are defined and then you've pitched your tent about who you are and the value you bring and what you represent and your purpose, the next thing is important that you stay consistent. Not that you are one thing today and then you are shifting, because then people are not clear who you are and what space you have, because most funds are defined for something. It's okay, this fund wants to do this and this is the partner want to do it because we know who the person is. So you can find that there is consistency. The next is that the moment they see consistency, they want to see, okay, congruence. When this person speaks, does his action or their activities align with their communication? So does your walk match your talk? Alignment between stated values and observable behavior. Now, these are things that you have to evolve over time and be resolute about it. People don't invest in your ideas, they invest in your integrity. Right? Okay, I have 4 more slides. Fundraising is really about friend raising. Fundraising is really about friend raising, right? Not friend raising from a point of view of manipulation. Like I said earlier, people can tell when you are not genuine or authentic. It's important that you come into relationships or engagements with that sense of commitment, in that sense, that authenticity, that genuineness, right? It is meaningful connections with or without a check. And I like the way somebody who had raised 2 rounds of $50 million was sharing with me at a conference. She said to me that most of the people who are giving her money now in her second round 5 years prior had told her no. So a no today will be yes tomorrow, depending on how you've evolved and managed the relationship. She kept those relationships going even when the answer was no. So show up before you need to. Attend events, engage with content, offer support when they need it the most, right? So showing up beyond, before you even need to go for any event, you need to just show up for people, engage with them and all of that. Celebrate within an agenda. So it's important that you are also, celebrating what others are doing. Acknowledge achievements, milestones and contributions without immediate expectation. That you're not just playing to the gallery, but you are showing up genuinely, and that will be reciprocated over time. Share your process, not just your pitch. People want to see what's under the hood. They want to see the reality. They want to see the struggles. They want to see the pain. They want to see the doubts and all of that. And at the same time, how you are rising above all of these things. Invite partners into your thinking, challenges and evolution, and how you are evolving, right? Invite participation, not just approval. You don't just need dumb, dump funds. You need partners who are there with you in reality, right? In recent times, we've gone shopping for partners, and I remember one of the conversations that we had with some of our partners, and I said to them, because they are very transaction oriented, and we said, look, that you need to. I appreciate the fact that you guys, because as a financial institution, you will give it to just transactions, and that's all you see. And the problem with that, with a purely transactional mindset, is that you commoditize people, right? And so, just the transaction. I said, but you need to appreciate the fact that we are impact oriented and all of that. So we are willing to accommodate your transaction if you are willing to accommodate our impact orientation, right? So, and I was saying to them that I don't want dumb funds. I want a partner indeed who's able to walk the journey together with us, and then as we're going, we see the growth, we see all of that, and all of that. So that's extremely important as we progress. So sorry about that. Somebody's saying that you can't read the slides. I will ensure that I input that into future presentations. So the friendship funnel from stranger to stakeholder. I remember somebody said to me once at a conference where I was speaking, and he said that I was accused of being privileged, and I smiled because there was someone in the room that knew me from long before I became anything, and I was saying to the young lady who made that comment that all the people that I seem to know today, before I knew them, I didn't know them, and so there's always a starting point where, and so know that whoever the person is, whoever the people are, before you knew them, you didn't know them. So there's always a starting point, and there's that friendship funnel. It begins with discovery. Who are they really? Research their passions, their priorities, their pain points. Get to know people. First of all, you may have to do a lot of research to say, okay, I know them theoretically, but not personally. And then you're curious. You show interest. You're asking questions, because the day you then meet them, you are armed with the real questions that resonate with them. So you ask the questions, you listen more than you're there to speak, and all of that. Seek to understand before being understood yourself, because you're really there to understand them. And as you begin to, you have that curiosity, connection is established. You didn't have connection, you identify values alignment and shared beliefs, create opportunities for meaningful interaction. And then once there is connection, you now begin to grow into the place of trust. Small changes, big, resonance, demonstrate reliability and follow through consistently. This comes over time. Trust is a product of time. It doesn't happen immediately. So when you're meeting people for the first time, what you will first of all meet is distrust. And so it's okay because they don't know you. But what you want to have first is connection. Once you connect through intentional action and ensuring that you're keeping your word, at least you're trying to, and you're working at it and all of that, you begin to build trust. And as you build trust, you then invite them to co-own possibilities. They then see the world together. They have a joint vision together, and then offer opportunities to engage in ways that matter to them. It's about how can what you are doing bring value to them, not just what is good for you. And then at that point, by the time they begin to experience the positive energy, the positive results, the positive impact that you are making, then they can now become advocates and champions for your work. So they become advocates for you. They become ambassadors who bring others into the vision, right? So this is extremely important, right? So practical framework. First is you relate. Initiate with genuine curiosity. Ask questions that reveal values and passion, because you genuinely want to know these people. Once you have that, you then begin to build mutual respect. Treat the relationship as sacred. Honor boundaries and preferences. It's important. So people do not like to be bothered. And so it's important that you maintain boundaries. Remember, I was saying the three things that the older gentleman said to me. The last thing he said is, do not abuse your access. Extremely important. Resonate. Align around shared purpose. Find the intersection between your missions, right? And then lastly, reinforce. Sustain with intentional touch points. Create rhythm of meaningful connection, right? Your relational operating system should be as intentional as your financial one, right? So this is my last slide. Relational integrity equal institutional longevity, right? It's all about relationships. In order to build strong institutions with the capacity to mobilize funds, you need to understand that it's about people. It's about having clear process and ensuring that everything is documented in order to create boundaries and definitions and frameworks that guide that relationship. Because once money is involved, it is not going to be purely about relationships. You have to get into the actual transaction documentation. Everything must be documented. Everything must be documented. So organizations with the longest networks are the most resilient, right? Room to fail. Fundraising gives you space to experiment. Sorry, I meant friend-raising, not fundraising, because when you have friend-raising, when you have friends, there's more element of trust and openness to the possibilities of failure, and they will tell you all the landmines you may have in front of you. So friend raising and friendships give you space to experiment and still be trusted when things don't go as planned, and many times they wouldn't go as planned. It's always important to think about Murphy's Law or when you're dealing with this. Freedom to dream. Long-term partners allow room to envision bold futures, not just report on past activities. And then lastly, value beyond delivery. Worth is created not just in what you accomplish, but how you make people feel in the process. So now I've been talking a lot about relationship, and this is where we started here, is to say that it's all about people. The person who is going to recommend you, the person who is going to support and help you, the person who is going to convince others that this is what should be funded. It is a human being, and like I said, we work for people, we work with people, and we are accountable to people. It's all about people, relationships at the center of fundraising. And so I look forward to having to seeing the other sessions that you will have. I know that you're having Femi Taiwo tomorrow, and they will all give the other technical elements, more technical elements to this. But I will tell you that if you want to really invest in fundraising, relationship should be like 80%, and then the rest is maybe probably 20%. Thank you very much. I can take questions now.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. Very, 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 very enlightening session that you shared there. I mean, quite a number of things stood out for me. Just before we take questions, I'm gonna just read out because I mean I was just writing as you were speaking. Um, One of the things you said that stood out to me was you said trust before transaction, trust
Yep.
before transaction. And I mean that is very, very important. There was something else you said that the longest standing partners didn't start with a proposal. It didn't start with proposals. So sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that because we want to access funding, want to do this, want to do that, the first thing is to just push out proposals, push out pitch decks, push out slide decks, um, properly decorated slide decks, but not on the foundation of any tangible relationship or any tangible
Yeah.
partnership. And that was very, 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 very.
In fact, Victor, let me tell you something about that. I remember, and this was not. This is. I remember that there was a proposal I submitted once. I went into an office, and this was just an almost cold submission, and I just went in. I met the gentleman, but I knew about him. I'd heard about him. I had done my background, but I submitted the proposal. So he looked at it, and just we went through, and said, "Okay, no, we'll be in touch." So as I was about leaving, I mean, I made a presentation on it. I was about leaving. I made a comment. I said, "Sir, my uncle said I should say hi." He said he knew you back in the day when you were doing this interesting project. Da, 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 da. He said, who is your uncle? I mentioned his name. He said, really? Then he began to talk, and then after talking and expressing himself, he then said, that your proposal, bring it, let me look at it. He then
Wow.
showed me, he said, you see this line, it's offensive. Don't write it.
Ooh.
Take this one off. This other part, remove it. Change this to this. He just gave me a few pointers. When you finish, come and
Yeah.
resubmit it.
Oh. Wow. 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 So, oh boy, that this story you shared now just, I mean, it brings to mind the fact that, because I know that in the course of this session, one of the questions people might be asking is, or might be one of the questions they might be asking is, if I don't know, I may not have any direct relationship with this person. Like, so let's say, for example, one is trying to submit a proposal to the Gates Foundation, for example. They may not have any direct connection to anyone within the Gates Foundation. But from this story you just shared now, I see that one of the things that is also very important to to know is you can find out someone that knows someone within that space. They could put in a word for you. Because in this case, what you shared was you just had to bring in your uncle into the space. Your uncle was like the connecting factor between the
Yeah.
man and yourself. Yes. So it's quite important that when we do our relationship analysis, stakeholder analysis, and all, we are able to point at what stage is the relationship. Is it first stage? Is it second stage? Is it third stage? And I mean, it is very, very important. Very important. I
Yeah.
see that questions are dropping in. Any more comments before we go on with questions? Because I still have a number of things I want to share. Because like I said, I was writing quite a number of things. So I'm going to say one or two things, then we'll take questions. But do you have any other comments just before we go on with that?
Yeah. No, I mean, are you still there? Okay.
Yes, I am. I am. I
Okay. No,
am.
so I think that it is also important because in pursuit for well, two things I would say. One is in the pursuit, um, it's always tempting to disregard the people you that are already around you that you already know, and we're looking for someone that is out
Mm,
there.
yes.
And there's always that temptation. The second thing is also to know that cash is the least form of money. Cash is the least form of money. Um, their currency is, as I mean, if you build relationship, you realize that people can do things for you that is much more than what cash can get, and that
Yeah.
will give you significant more traction and help you build credibility that you can even be that you can now convert into cash. But the cash itself is the least is the least form of funding. And an example I like to give, there's a program that was launched in my home country. It was one of the big tech companies. Their training program for the entire country was going to for on digital skills and all of that. And how did that thing happen? I got a role in working with my late president then as an advisor, but I was in the office of the vice president then, and then a classmate of mine became head of network development for that tech company, and I just called him and I just said, how are you and all of that. I said, you just got this. I just got this role. That look, we're seeing this thing happening in other countries. How can we get this thing to happen here? It's okay. Let me talk to my leadership, and then you talk to leadership, and let's see if we can align. That's what got that program launched in State House, and then for the entire country, and has trained millions of people in my home country. And these are just two secondary school classmates that we just kept that relationship going, and we've seen ourselves before the emergence, so in quotes,
Mm,
right? So sometimes
mm,
you trivialize those relationships, and those relationships could benefit you 15 years in the future. But if you don't nurture them
Yes.
in the season where you thought that it was nothing, by the time it becomes something, you can't draw down from it.
Yes. 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 Thank you. Thank you. Very, very, very important things you've shared. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just before we take questions, I want to just say one more thing that stood out. You said share your process, not just the pitch. Share your process and not just the pitch. And it is very important. People just think they just go out there and they want to just talk about their own ideas. But I mean, in the process of coming up with those ideas, there are also challenges that have been faced. There's little successes that have been had, that have been won. It's also important that you share, just basically share what the journey is, so that people know that they are actually human beings doing these things.
Yeah.
And because sometimes we in a bid to want to make ourselves look too perfect out there, we don't we are a bit scared of talking about the process. But from what you've just shared, share your process and not just the pitch. Very,
Yeah.
very important
Yeah.
things. Yes. So questions are rolling in. I'm hoping that we'll be able to take all the questions. We have maybe about 25 minutes to take questions, but we'll see what we can do. So the first question here, and so let me take this. The question says, what's the best approach in selling trust to people who have been burnt before? What's the best approach in selling trust to people who have been burnt before?
Okay. You really can't, you see, you can't control what people do to you.
Okay.
You can't control how people deal with you, but you can control how you respond to them. You can control yourself. You can control how you show up.
Mm.
I remember in one of my assignments that I had before, where I had to execute an instruction that didn't come from me with a team member, and that broke trust. The team member was so upset. He said, "I would never trust you again." He was so upset, and da 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 da. Da. And I remember calling the guy and telling him that, look, you see, trust is earned, and I really apologize that I've broken trust. And this is where you break trust. But of course, it was with the best of intentions and all of that. I would ask you to just give me the opportunity for us to just, we don't have to be friends, but we can work together,
Yeah.
right? Hopefully, as we work together, trust can be rebuilt. But I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking us to just work together, and then hopefully we'll build trust. So, point is, you can bring it down. You can be very matter of fact about it, and then the way you build trust is every time you kept your word, every time you delivered on your promise or what you said you were going to do and how you said you're going to do it, every time you were accountable and transparent, your trust value and your trust capital rises. So it will take time to build that trust. For those who have been burnt, it will take longer, right? So what you want to do is to show up clearly, show up consistently, and show up coherently. Once you show up like that, over time, the person adjusts and says, well, I've been burnt. There's some difference about this guy. He has capacity. He's capable. So, okay. Am I sure about his intentions? I don't know. I'm not inside. I don't know. But at least he gets the job done. So they can work with that. So point is, you're constantly giving what is consistent and sustainable. So over time, the world will adjust to you. But it takes time to build trust, and you just have control over how you show up.
Okay. So show up clearly, show up consistently, and show up coherently. Show up clearly, show up consistently, show up coherently. Okay, so let's take the next question. What has been your biggest challenge in identifying or approaching the right funders for your organization? What has been your biggest challenge in identifying or approaching the right funders for your organization?
You just don't know them. The
Hmm.
ones that are known, everybody is after them. So it's a crowded space. The known
Okay.
names are the known names. It's crowded. Everybody's trying to get from the known names. But there are many names that are not known who will happily fund what you're doing. But you just don't know them. So, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So I think the first thing is to admit that you don't know them, which is what I've pretty much done. I don't know them, and then say, okay, start. Who are the ones that are known? Okay, so you put the known ones. Who are the ones that we can know? And one of the
Hmm.
things I say is that birds of the same feather fly together. Birds of the same feather eat the same food. So if you find one person who is at the center of funding and the person is doing great work, he probably has one or two other friends in the funding space as well. So you would, if you are able to find the one person, you want to see the person's universe or his network. There are other people in that space, and so you want to be in the room. I like whenever I'm in a room and I look around 360, I say, okay. I look around, I'm like, okay, so I belong. I'm in the right crowd. Therefore, they're not too far away. The people I'm
Yeah.
looking for are not too far away.
Hmm.
So you may not know them, but they're in the same. So it's just that you don't know them. So you would. So another thing is being humble enough to walk up to someone and say, "Look, can you give me an introduction? See what I'm doing and all of that." There's a popular saying: if you ask for money, they'll give you advice. If you ask for advice, they'll give you money. So ask for advice.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes. Ask for advice. Ask for advice. Okay. Okay. We have another question here. There's a saying: a prophet is never honored in his own household. Isn't this a major obstacle in building business relationships among friends?
Um, yes and no, because if you there's also another saying that business is work when family and friends pay their dues.
Okay.
Um, so um, one of the things that I'm very intentional about, and all the friends, I mean, the friends, at least I don't know about other people, but the friends that I keep, the friends around, is we are always thinking about how to add and help the other person.
Mm,
It's we are other conscious and other minded, and so there's a let's assume there's a practice in my home country where people say somebody buys a car or buys a house or something, and then you say let's go and wash it. Main street, when you say let's go and wash it, what they mean is they are coming to enjoy at your expense. But in my crop of friends, if you buy a car, we want to ensure that we buy the first fuel in your car.
mm,
If you
mm.
build a house, we want to say, no, let's ensure that you just spent money. Let's give you something just to help you
Yeah,
to furnish,
yeah,
to add to the furnishing or something. Because
yeah,
in a sense, virtue has left you. So how do we
yeah.
ensure that we hold you up, in this season? Now, what
Mm,
happens is that you then have a mutually reinforcing and strengthening community, and so you must be intentional about building that community fabric by fabric, right? So to say that, so when you have, so it's important to nurture friends that, that one, if they ask for a service, they are happy to pay because they know that they are supporting you in that, and vice versa. And so don't expect what you're not giving, and in a sense. So I think that that is true in some cases, but at the same time, it's to nurture those kinds of friends. And then sometimes you build credibility outside, and then your friends find out and whatever. But again, it's a tricky balance.
okay, okay, Okay. I think we still have time for another 2 or 3 questions. So let me just take this. Um, so this one says, truly, relationships are important. But how do we begin to build these relationships with potential partners? How would a newbie get in the room? How would a newbie get in the room?
So you have to buy a ticket and get through the door. So I will explain what I mean by a ticket. A ticket can be
Okay.
anything. Um, as much as I say that relationship first, we are all there's always a transaction. Just that, what currency are you using for the transaction? So, for example, um, okay, let me use Further as an example. Further reached out. Okay, Daniel, we know you. Da, 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 please come and speak here. If I had to, if I had to be paid to do this, it'd have been a lot of money, right? Or whatever else. But now I've done it. It is, in terms of value, it is, I have invested into the relationship, right? I've invested into the relationship. So what has Further done? Further has worked with established relationships to then increase its capital. So Further is increasing capital on the basis of relationships. So
Mm,
after this, now your value has gone up by your network, by the relationships and all of that. So in the space that you've defined, right, somebody's going to open the door for you.
mm.
You see the point I'm making? And
Yes.
so and so just by creating the platform, allowing people who are trying to get funding, you solve the problem. That problem you solved, you've invested. You've invested
Mm,
in the 1,000 plus people who are joining this
mm,
call. And that
mm.
investment exchanges value at the same time. You've invested by bringing in the kind of people you're bringing in to come and share the experience. So
Yeah.
how do you start? You start where you are. You use what you have. You do what you
Mm,
can.
mm.
So if it means volunteering, in some cases an event is happening. This event has the caliber of people you want to access. You reach out to the organizers and say, I would like to
Organizers.
volunteer.
Yeah.
So by volunteering, you get in the room. Then you
Mm,
say, okay, we need someone to be a to do a summary and do documentation or whatever. I'm happy to do it. We'll handle that. Now, in those things you were bringing in, which can easily be monetized, but you're not monetizing it. You're
mhm.
giving you're buying your ticket into being in those rooms. Many of the rooms I found myself, I bought not by cash, but in kind, by saying, I would like to do
Mm,
this, and then you got in.
mm,
Some other ones you do hardcore. You buy the ticket, you go for the conference, you go for the event. In some
mm,
cases, you buy VIP, so you sit down on VIP table, then you can have access. But that doesn't guarantee you
mm.
friendship. But at least you are in
Yeah.
the
Right.
room.
Yes. 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 That's true. That's true.
So I mean,
So yeah.
you need incrementally and in
Mm,
installments, and then over time it builds up.
okay. Okay. I hope that throws some light to the person who asked this question, because it's important that you. I mean, so, Mr. Daniel has just talked about volunteering. Volunteering is such a powerful way to get in the room. It's such a powerful way to get in the room. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, there are spaces where I have been in where it was just by volunteering. I got to meet this person, speak with this person, and from there, relationships began. So please, you may want to consider volunteering as an option for you to get in the room, and it would help with building these relationships. There are 2 questions here, and I think this will be the last question for now. There are 2 questions that I want us to take. They are not directly linked to this subject, But just because the questions are here, I think that you should throw some light on it. And maybe for the other session, probably it could also be talked about. The first question is, I will just take it, it's two in one. It's asked by Bernard Ekongo. It says, we have a CBO working on wash space, but we are facing the challenge of winning grants. What advice can you give us? We have a CBO working on wash space, but we are facing the challenge of winning grants. What advice can you give us? So just before you answer this question, let me take the second one that is just like it. It is from Philip Fury. It says, what is the best strategy for a startup social impact organization to secure funding right from the start? What is the best strategy for a startup social impact organization to secure funding right from the start?
I'll start with the last one. Family and
Okay.
friends. Family and friends.
Okay. Mm.
The best way for your startup to raise funds is family and friends. So my wife and I started, and then, you know, a foundation many years back called Leader Women and Children Foundation. And when
Okay.
we started, I remember that, well, she saw a problem that she wanted to solve. In fact, we didn't have an organization then. There was just a problem. So the medical doctor,
Okay.
seven in a primary healthcare center, and there were extreme cases of malnutrition. She thought it was maybe HIV or something, but then look, this is kwashiorkor. This is like it's marasmus, because you had 3 year olds that had no teeth, and then the hairs were falling and all of that.
Mm.
And so she came home and always complaining. I said, look, you go feed them. Like, am I government? I'm like, no, you are government. Go, as far as they are concerned, go feed them. I said, don't worry, I'll fund the first project. So she goes into the market, buys soya beans, corn, and groundnut, puts it together. We create a meal. I remember that those meals we would use hand sealers to seal them, and then we brought it
Mm.
into that primary healthcare center and began to, give to the women and for their children. On this meal, if you saw the pictures before and after, it was like life and death,
Wow.
right? And then we kept on doing it. We now realized that we can't feed these children forever. That how do we
Mm.
make it sustainable? We said, okay, first, if we empower the mothers, we'll make it sustainable. So we ensured that the mothers will sit down in the primary healthcare center for 45 minutes. We taught them on entrepreneurship, hygiene, and family planning. Uptake in the primary health center went up because of that program. The kids were now being taken taking their vitals were being taken on a regular basis, and the use of the primary health care center was then effective. Now,
Mm.
at that point where we were funding, family and friends said to us, "This thing you guys are doing is so good, you can't stop." So they began. So
Mm.
family and friends started giving us money to do the same, to continue doing this thing we're doing in that
Yes.
in,
Yeah.
in that community. So we kept doing it. After a while, um, institutional funders now said, look, we want to give you some money. But then there was no vehicle to receive the money, because no organization will give you money and say, pay into my private account.
Yes. Yeah.
So that forced us to go set up the organization, because we needed a vehicle and an instrument or a platform to then receive the funds that had been predetermined for this. And that's how that evolved.
Mm.
But what started was the problem we were solving. We used our own funds initially. Family and friends came in and started using their funds. Credibility was built, track record, and then um, other institutions now felt, okay, we want to now fund this initiative because it is making
Yeah.
impact in the community. So that is
Yeah.
just the answer to that question. If you're starting out, start out where again, start where you are, use what you have,
Mm-hmm.
do what you can,
Mm-hmm.
use your own resource. Family and friends come in, build your proper track record and all of that, and then the rest will now come in. Now this then spills into the first question, the community-based organization, right?
Mm.
Now, in order for you to win grants, it means that your capability has been well established. You have a strong track record of doing this, and probably you are in the top percentile of those who get this thing done, right?
Mm.
And if you've been in that space long enough and you've built that credibility and track record, it means you've also built the relationships and reputation of getting things done. right? So that would now help you to say, okay, if I submit a grant application is most likely going to win, at least to be in top 3 or top 4 or whatever. But you have that. Now, if you don't have that, right, you have to now go back and then use family and friends. Still has to be. So you keep leveraging family and friends and your own resources until you have built enough capability, reputation, and the relationships to win grants.
Okay.
It's a long game. You
Thank
can
you.
this is a long game. It's a marathon. It's
Yes.
not a sprint.
Yes.
If you're doing a sprint, you will die. You will die quickly. Your organization will die quickly. But if it's a marathon, then you want to be there long term.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that would be the last set of questions we'll be taking. I think the participants would agree, those watching would agree that this has been a very, very enlightening session. Very, very enlightening session. So thank you, Mr. Daniel. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I'll
Thank you so
be
much.
taking you off the stage now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So, okay. It's just a lot of information. I mean, valid information, valid information. Um, I think I should start just before I go on. I think I should start by saying that use the comment section and tell us something you have learned. Tell us something you've learned in this, say, 40, 50 minutes of this conversation. So just tell us something. It could just be a line, it could just be just one line, something that you have learned. We would put it up there on the screen. Joyce says that this is a great platform for learning and sharing ideas. Thank you very much, Joyce. Yes, it's a great platform for learning and sharing ideas. Just before Mr. Daniel went out, something that he said. I mean, quite a number of things he said stood out, but just before he just dropped off now, something that he said was that it is a long game. It is a long game. So you have to plan for it for the long term. Also, I think it's also very important to highlight. It is very important to highlight that start from where you are. Start from where you are. Um, just start from where you are, basically. You may not be able to access the top guys, but if you do if you do a deep critical analysis of your own space, the relationships around you, you would see that there are people, or you could even just be that you are one step away from someone that can fund an idea. It may not be the big version of the idea you have. It could just be a smaller version of the idea you have, just like what Mr. Daniel said. They first started with funding themselves. They first started with funding themselves. Then it grew to the point where family and friends began to support. And it got to the point where institutions were now willing to give them funds. And the truth is, nobody is willing to give you funds until they see that there is some result. They want to be sure that whatever it is you're doing is viable and is feasible. So someone says, Thomas, I'm about reading Thomas's comments. He says, I have learned a new concept, friend raising. Very important thing that, very, very important concept that Mr. Daniel talked about. Start small, build your basics, use family and friends, and then apply for grants. Yes, start small, build the basics, make sure you get your foundation right, and you go from there. Cash is the least form of funding from Saint Musisi. The relationships come first, then the fundraising, and that is better to ask, and that it is better to ask for advice than for money. Yes, you can ask for money and you get advice, but if you ask for advice, you get money. The journey to social impact is a marathon, not a sprint. Very correct from Adeola David. The journey to social impact is a marathon. Organizations with the strongest network are the most resilient. Yes. Organizations with the strongest network are the most resilient. This is such an insightful session. I just registered my NGO, and this session is timely. Wow, George from Gombe, Nigeria. It's wonderful to know that this session is timely for you. I have learned that fundraising is a condition precedent for a sustainable fundraising. Yes, very correct. I mean, I can't take all the comments here because we're trying to make sure that each session is prompt and is also very impactful enough for you. But I'll just take this last comment. One key insight I've gained in the social impact space is the importance of establishing meaningful relationships before engaging in any transaction. Establishing meaningful relationships before engaging in any transaction. Yes. So very, very valid things, very, very valid comments that you're all sharing. Volunteerism. I know I said I was going to take the last one, but let me just take this one. From Eden Chafumbwa, volunteerism is best startup to gain trust and is the best way to gain trust and of course build more network. Okay, so we're coming to that point where we are wrapping up the session for today. But just before we wrap up, I have some quick things I want to just talk about, and we're out of here. So you see, we're trying to make sure that we keep the session brief and prompt. What I want to talk about now is, let me just introduce the two, which is happening tomorrow at the same time. So tomorrow we'll be having Dr. Elizabeth with us. Dr. Elizabeth is the project director at the Nigeria Youth Future Funds of Leap Africa. And in her session should be her session is more like an introduction into the fundraising space. So it's going to be a very, very enlightening one. If you have questions, particularly around how to even get started, I see that someone said he just registered his own organization. How do you even navigate the space? That session, you want to be in that session. Mark your calendars. Mark your calendars. You want to be in that session. Make sure that you're there and just come ready to learn. You can see that this session today was very, very enlightening. I can promise you that the session tomorrow the session tomorrow is also going to be very, very enlightening. The next thing I want to talk about, which links to what I had said before, was feedback. We want to make sure that we are giving you the best services possible. So please use the link that has just been dropped in the comment section by the admin. Use it to give us your feedback about how this session was. Was everything good? Were there challenges? If there were challenges, throw some light on what the challenges were so that we can fix it before tomorrow. We want to make sure that the experience for you in tomorrow's session is top notch, you're enjoying it, and it's good. Yes, so I should also say that we will have an events page for this funding formula. There is an events page. It's the funding is the further firm / funding formula, the funding formula event. Admin, if you could drop that link on the comment section to also be appreciated. So you can use any information you need about the funding formula. This edition of the funding formula is on this page. This is on it's on the screen already. So you can use it to get any information that you need to get about the funding formula. You see details about all the speakers, their bio. Then for day two, you also need to click on the link, just the same way you clicked on the link for this one. Click on the link, just put in your basic details, name, country. We're trying to, we want to make sure that we know where participants are watching from, are joining in from. So do that, and yes, that is it. On that page, you have all the information that you require for this. And as always, as you've always been getting via email, if you have any questions, any further questions about anything that is probably not answered on the events page, you can reach out to us at info@further.com. Admin, please put that up. Info@further.com. You can send us an email there. Someone will be on the other end to give you a reply. So yes, this is the events page. So you see that the 2 is beginning very soon. Then there's an overview. There's also the event schedule. You can click on the link. You can click to join. You click there, and once you click there, it takes you to a page where you just provide some basic details, your name and your country, and that is it. Okay, someone says, please, can we share the StreamYard link to people who didn't register to join tomorrow's session? Okay, so admin, please put up the link for tomorrow's session. Put up the link for tomorrow's session so that people can just register. And once you register, you get a prompt once it's time for. Okay, so someone says the slido.com was a bit challenging to access. Okay, so please use the feedback form we have shared to give us this feedback. We would consider this feedback as we plan for tomorrow. We will consider this as we plan for tomorrow. So that is it from us for now. We are once again grateful that you have taken out the time to join us for this very informative session. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you so much for coming here on this platform. We hope that it has been very enlightening for you. And until we come your way next time, tomorrow, this time tomorrow, or about 4 p.m. West African time tomorrow. My name still remains Victor John, and I am from the Further firm. Bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, across Africa and beyond, this one is for the visionaries, the builders, the change makers. Welcome to the funding forum.
From Lagos to Nairobi, Accra to Kigali, we gather to unlock destiny. No more guessing, we got the key. The Further Fund, they show the strategy. Grants, donations, corporate giving. Everything we need, we go start with it. Proposal game, now we did deliver. Because we understand the funding formula.